So just as a reminder, we'll do question and answer at the end. I think you guys will probably be able to see the questions, but I can read them out for everybody, if that works for you guys.
Yeah, you may want to read it out because if there's more than one and you want to choose which one to go.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So I'll definitely read them out, and then we'll allow you all to answer.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Wait 1 second, I'll be back. But in the please need a meeting. I'm going in this one. Mira, whatever you're saying, I will hear. Please. Sorry, bit of noise here.
Was Jason able to get back on to the dial-in?
I sent him the phone number, so I think he will try to call in.
Okay, I think I see him. I just want to make sure he has the ability to talk. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah,
he's
just
in.
texted that he's on. But he's
Okay.
just said it as an attendee.
Okay, let me change that.
So that 386.
I think so.
Yes, it's the 386.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
All right. So Jason is here.
I don't think so. I don't see
Can you
him
hear
in the
me?
panelists. Oh, yes.
Very
Is
good.
that Jason?
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Alright.
my electric just went out, so this is going to be kind of fun.
Of course.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
Now, these things happen.
Okay, Melissa, you'll be ready to start the presentation at 9:30?
I'm ready whenever you are.
Perfect, you can take it away.
Are we on?
Yep, we're ready to go.
Perfect.
Great.
Welcome everyone to this digital summit presentation, End-to-End Agile EA and Nationwide Insurance Perspective, which today is being brought to us by the EA team at Nationwide. They've done some really great work with Abacus and with their EA practice in general, and we're really excited for them to share some of it with you. My name is Melissa Craig, and I'm the regional manager of our US office. Before I hand it over to our great speakers, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping issues that will keep the event moving forward smoothly today. If you would like to ask questions, please go ahead and write your questions in the Q&A text facility. There's a chat portion of Zoom. If you do, I'd ask you to also please address it to all participants so everyone's able to see what questions have already been submitted. Our intention today is to try and answer as many questions as possible, and we'll do that at the end of the presentation. If you'd like to simply share an opinion or a comment, you can also use the same chat facility and feel free to do so at any time. Please note that today's event is being recorded, so if you need to leave early or if you have any local technical difficulties, everyone who is registered for the event will receive the recording and a link to download the slides in a few days. If you're ready to go, Hari and team, I'll go ahead and ask you to start today's presentation.
Yes, thank you, Melinda. This is great. There's a nationwide EA team here to present to you this topic on end-to-end agile via enterprise architecture. My name is Hari Krishnan. I lead the enterprise architecture team at Nationwide. And today, to present this, make this presentation with me are Troy Peterson, Preetham Dey, Jason Sinclair, Habib Majid, and Sharik Shafi. So you're going to get a full picture of the enterprise architecture from the different angles, as each of these participants here in the panel have worked on it from multiple points of view. Before we jump into the specifics of enterprise architecture and Abacus, a little bit of context for you from a nationwide perspective. So Nationwide Insurance is a Fortune 100 company, actually like Fortune 67, fairly large enterprise. It provides both insurance services as well as financial services. We have been in business 90 plus years, getting close to 100 years in business. It's rated as a Fortune 100 best places to work and best places for diversity, etc. More than 30,000 associates in Nationwide spread across the country. Seventh largest homeowner insurance, and eighth largest life insurance and auto insurer. Very widely known in US for the jingle, Nationwide is on your side. In terms of the Nationwide technology, Nationwide runs with one single technology team that supports the entire enterprise, by which I mean all the lines of businesses, including personal lines insurance, commercial insurance, annuity, retirement services, as well as our public and private retirement plan administration, etc. There are roughly about 8,000 plus IT workforce, that combination of associates and contractors. Nationwide has implemented Agile in a big way, so we found our development strength in terms of the development teams which are involved. 200 plus development teams, which are again spread across the different lines of businesses. In terms of annual IT spend, we are north of $1 billion, somewhere over 1.2 to 1.3 billion. Continuously working to bring that number down as we're getting more and more efficient. The application portfolio has about 2,500 plus applications, and wide variety of technologies which are in, with 50 plus different technologies that we primarily leverage. And there's a number of small ancillary uses of other technologies too. Just to give you a context of the complexity that we have managed to model with Abacus here. Nationwide, over the years, the Nationwide IT team has tracked to where our business team have been heading towards. If I look back into the 2000s and where our businesses started evolving, as of 2000, we were a collection of different brands. So Nationwide was acting more like a holding company at the enterprise level, with all the individual lines of businesses having their own self-contained operations. And they operated under different companies as well as different brands. They focused heavily on growing individually, but not necessarily working across. In 2009, our CEO took a decision to bring us all together as one company. And though we continue to have the different brands, the operations were consolidated. So the company started moving towards one direction. And in 2015, we even went one more step forward, changing it into one brand, focus more on our profitability and capital strength, and as well as leveraging our strengths across the lines of businesses. And in 2020, we again took the further leap to declare that we have one mission, which is completely customer focused and irrespective of the lines of business that is supporting it. Now, what does it mean from a IT perspective? As you can see, we were heavily waterfall when we originally started. Then we introduced pockets of Agile as we became one company. Then we we went into Agile at scale and heavily used lean IT principles on top of it to gain efficiencies. We have gone from running programs and projects which are very siloed into more of a cross-functional teams, which are now trying to move more into metrics development teams. Our IT architectures were highly monolithic and tightly coupled. We had switched that to more of a service-oriented architecture, and now we are again going through the modifications of making them more cloud and microservices oriented. We're more focused on stability originally. Just want to see our systems available and running all the time. Then we switched to thinking more of the quality underneath, and now we are focused on the efficiency and speed aspects. Why this is important? Because as a business and as IT, we have declared ourselves to be focused on few principles that we will deliver extraordinary care for our customers. And for that, we have decided to be a completely customer-centric organization, which is a digital organization, which will be technology savvy. We'll use the product-centric operating model, and we'll be highly focused on end-to-end speed and agility. So these, you'd see these terms typically being used in lots of places as buzzwords, but I can tell you for Nationwide, this means much more than a buzzword, because this is a complete redefinition of how we go to market and how we approach our customers with this product. This is a transformation which is underway. So I would not say that we are there yet, but we have definitely launched ourselves into moving towards us. Now, getting there definitely involves a lot of changes, which is underneath. First and foremost, we need our teams who are aligned around business outcomes, customer outcomes, our business partner outcomes. So more of becoming more outcome-based rather than activity-based. So it is not about whether we got a project done under budget and on time. It is all about, did we get to what we intended to reach out to, the difference that we wanted to make? Did we accomplish that or not? We are looking at more of cross-functional teams which are co-located. Even in a remote scenario, there's still cross-functional teams which are co-located virtually. Empowering those closest to the solution that make decisions. So push down decision making all the way down to the line level, so that we don't make stifling architectural decisions or business decisions up front and push it through to get suboptimal results. So delaying the decisions as late as we can. Iterative delivery, which has been slowly have been getting into our gene, I would say, mostly in the IT side, and our journey has been how do we get to that on the business side. And with all this, that should give us an ability to sense and respond to the market much faster, and go more towards a performance-based funding model, because financial models can be a large strain on large organizations like ours. If we are into an annual funding cycle, a lot of times, because of the financial constraints, we may be forced to execute on certain projects because they just got funded. We're working with finance, our IT finances, as well as our overall finance teams are very well aware of the journey we are in. They're working with us into enabling more of a shorter cycle financial arrangements for us. With that said, coming back to from a technology point of view, we are based on infrastructure. We have gone from a dedicated on-prem more and more into starting to use IaaS and PaaS, and now more of SaaS services into our mix. So sort of a hybrid cloud scenario, but then we don't have private cloud. We have still on-prem services, but mostly we are migrating onto the cloud. We have gone to more shorter releases. In some places, we have the ability to release when ready. And from architecture point of view, like I said, we are more moving towards APaaS, microservices, APIs, and containers. And from a methods point of view, we have more or less said bye-bye to waterfall, except I would still say our planning is still running on a waterfall, but We have become more agile, more DevOps, and more test and learn. So what this means from the picture on the right side, what this means is that a strong DevOps capability is vital for us that sits on top of our agile delivery. So being able to get a work in, break it down into small story cards, developing and then pushing it through DevOps and release when ready, that is a fundamental capability that we need. We are working on going to end-to-end agile, where we can extend the agile thinking back into the business domain. And so our digital transformation that is running from the business side as well as including the IT is intending to leverage all these things like end-to-end agile delivery, and DevOps. And once we have all these things, that's when we think we can move into a genuine product-centric operating model. So I hope the picture is clear to you in terms of the progressive steps that we intend to be taking. As for today's discussion, I would like to focus more on end-to-end agile and where Abacus and enterprise architecture plays a role in this. End-to-end agile is a word, excuse me, one second. End-to-end agile is a word or a buzzword again in the internet that you might come across, and very difficult to define or a particular concrete definition around it. I found this particular slide from McKinsey to be really meaning what end-to-end agile literally means for the organization. What that means is that today's organizations, which are highly siloed, works hierarchically, is more like it's work more like a machine which gets fine-tuned. So we have, whether we apply lean or any other mechanism, we are continuously trying to make this machine work in a much more efficiently. What end-to-end agile requires us to do is to move more into making that organizations into an organism. When it as a living organism, what happens is that it's able to respond very quickly. That it has teams which are cross-functional teams, as you can see. Instead of being siloed, there are cross-functional teams that collaborate across the organization and continuously guided by this nucleus of a leadership that sets the direction, but doesn't give a prescriptive direction or prescriptive execution points, but it sets the direction rather than being prescriptive about how to execute on it. Allows decisions to be made within the individual teams. So you get this empowered cross-functional teams that are in constant collaboration and communication across, enabling the leadership's direction and working towards the same direction. And conceptually, making the transformation required a few things. Like I was saying before, we need this DevOps capability. We need our agile delivery capability. We need our agile architecture capability, which we don't have, and most organizations don't have. And then we need an integrated planning where we become more outcome focused and both business and IT are able to plan together. And the bottom two pieces are typically what organizations have. The top two are most of the organizations are working to develop. As you can see, this is heavily dependent on the people, culture dimension of the organization, as well as having this ability to have full stack teams that work across. What typically gets missed, as we have seen across the board, is the role of enterprise architecture in this game. What enterprise architecture provides is the information fabric that runs across. All these are different capabilities, like DevOps is a capability, Agile delivery is a capability, Agile architecture will be a capability as we put it in, and the integrated planning will be a capability. How do we make all these capabilities leverage the same information base? And how do we allow that information to flow through these processes without a hassle? And that is where enterprise architecture was focused on. So from a nationwide enterprise architecture team, we put a framework together, taking as one more step forward from models like TOGAF and et cetera, to say that our enterprise architecture is product-centric. And it is an environment which will allow a product to be defined, developed, deployed, and evolve continuously. And for those products, we defined that there is a business architecture, application architecture, technology architecture, data and information architecture that need to be brought together. And these architectures, in turn, are working under the guidelines of the strategy architecture and the security architecture. So strategy and security architecture span across our products, but they provide the guidelines for these products to perform. And as enterprise architecture, we are focused on using consistent methods and practices, and as well as focused on continuous architecture and keeping our eyes on the value realization. So how do we get architecture not application-centric, but more product-centric, business result-centric, and value realization focused? So that is a key principle of enterprise architecture within Nationwide. And enterprise architecture, we look at it as an enabler to operationalize Agile architecture and the product-centric delivery model. Now, when we talk about Agile architecture, here is what we mean by it. That there is a flow of information, as I mentioned before, from our strategy architecture to a business architecture, to product architecture, to the system architecture. So what we mean by strategy architecture is that there is strategic alignment, goals and objectives, outcomes and initiatives, that they are interlinked, and we can see a clear connection between them. So if I take the vision and mission of the organization, that we would be able to walk it back to the goal, the multi-year goals that we put, and the annual objectives that we put in place, and the specific outcomes and initiatives that the business is asking us to execute on, or we are sitting at the table with the business deciding to execute on. That strategy architecture transfers into business architecture, which means here is how we, from a business point of view, we intend to achieve these outcomes, which is our value streams, our business services, and our features. And you'll see examples of what exactly these things are. And we intend to go more intentional in this nature, because these points of view from an IT perspective are more intentional, because they are put in place and they are fairly stable for that short period they're in place. From a broader business perspective, they are more evolutionary. But from a IT development point of view, I would think that these are more intentional because they set direction. And that business architecture translates into a product architecture where we look at saying, how is the solution flowing to accomplish the business services we want to deliver, the changes we want to do, to enable the features we want to create? What changes do we need to make to the solutions flow? What changes, what apps, APIs, and services changes do we need to make? What technology architecture choices are we going to be making? And all according to the architecture principles and standards, which we have already put in place from a governance point of view. So that should define our product architecture. And then based on the product architecture, we have our system architecture, which we'll talk about. Here is how this solution flow you're thinking translates into, at the system level, how the data or information is going to flow through our systems and how they integrate, and the corresponding data architecture and the corresponding security architecture that we need. So how do we get this information flow going without a hassle through the different architectures is what we call as Agile architecture, so that any changes that we do anywhere, we can feel the repercussions of it across the board. So I know these are sort of very high-level concepts, and I will let my colleagues start speaking to the specifics around what we mean by each one of these, so you can see examples of what we have done in each of these points. So, Preetham, would you like to talk about the integrated planning piece?
Yes, thank you, Hari. So here is an example of how we use Abacus for integrated planning, or so to say, end-to-end planning. What this basically means is that we use Abacus to map all the way, excuse me, to map all the way from strategy down to execution, right? So as Hari mentioned earlier, our definition of enterprise architecture is an integrated view of business and IT architecture. So in this slide, you'll see how business and IT architecture all come together to achieve a specific outcome. We also call this approach an outcome-based approach, because for every outcome, we kind of use the agile way of delivery. So on the left and at the top, what you see is basically the strategy architecture piece of it. You have the organization unit, you have the vision strategy, and at the top, you have the goals, objectives, and measures. So this is basically the components of strategy architecture, and they don't get changed very often. They get reviewed maybe on an annual basis, but they're pretty say static. The vision, mission, they don't change very much. Even the goals may be defined for 3 years, and objectives may get reviewed on an annual basis. What really changes is the outcome, and then how the outcome is realized. And the way we do it at Nationwide is that we use value stream as a kind of anchor that binds both strategy and execution together. Or in other words, we use value stream to kind of bind business and IT. So to deliver an outcome, we basically have to know what value stream is impacted. Now, the reason we use value stream is because, I mean, it's very obvious that value is fundamental to everything that an organization does. It is the foundation of a firm's business model. They may be explicitly or implicitly defined, but in essence, value is what we tend to deliver to the end customers, right? So a fully articulated value stream can lead to more effective business and operating model. Now, what is not shown here is that every value stream is connected to an underlying capability. At Nationwide, we have what is called a Nationwide Enterprise Business Capability Model, and every value stream is tied to that. So from the outcomes, so we have got two outcomes here. This is an example of Nationwide financial business. Say how to increase percentage of digital order entry, and another outcome is the increase of e-submission applications. So for each outcome and related value stream steps, we talk about how do we realize this value stream and outcome. And that's where the concept of features and business service come into the picture. So once we define the features and business services, we talk about, hey, I mean, how do we bundle these features into an initiative? You could think of initiative as a work package in Abacus concept, or a project or a program. So you can bundle multiple features into an initiative. And features are very, I would say, agile definition. That's something that you roll out on a regular basis to your end user. That's what we call feature, right? So once you define the initiative, we kind of create solution flow diagrams and identify where the associated IT architecture changes. For the lack of real estate on the slide, I haven't shown the solution flow diagram and the underlying IT implementation, but you can always consider initiative connected to a solution flow diagram, and solution flow diagram connects to the underlying technology, data, and security architecture changes. So in this way, we kind of depict an end-to-end integrated planning architecture, how we bring every aspect of enterprise architecture together, whether it is strategy, business, IT, technology, security, everything together. Now, what is really wonderful about this framework is that the outcome and value stream-based approach continuously converts strategy to action. So this is truly agile because all you need to do is on a regular basis, you revisit your outcome, you add a new outcome, or you redefine your outcome. And then you continue the same cycle, outcome, value stream, features, business survey, initiative, you continue the cycle. And this is truly very agile. It helps you to focus on delivery to your end user, value delivery to end user. And in this way, we kind of support end-to-end agile transformation. Now the question is, how does Abacus really facilitate this, help us in doing this integrated planning? With the new Abacus rollout of Abacus Studio and Abacus Enterprise, it really helps us to get the business partners involved in kind of doing this work. Earlier, with the client version of Abacus, only architects and destination was only architects used to model that, and our business partners were kind of not able. It was not visible to the business partners what exactly we are doing in Abacus. So now architects model all this work in Abacus Studio, and the business partners can view this work real time using the Abacus Enterprise or the dashboard part of Abacus. So this really helps us to store everything in one single repository. You do not have to maintain your PowerPoints, Visios, Word documents, spreadsheet. Everything can be modeled in Abacus. And in Nationwide, we really have a very good way of getting all the different information, such as applications or data level information, everything in Nationwide. We pulled all this information and architects really put them all together to kind of create this kind of integrated planning view. So this really helps us reduce the handoff that happens between various teams, from architects to the developers to the business partners and so on. So for us at Nationwide, the Abacus tool has really worked out very well in terms of doing this end-to-end enterprise architecture work or integrated planning, as you say. So this is just an example of it, and we have done this kind of similar work across all the different teams and areas within Nationwide. So this is just an example. So I hope this makes sense how Agile architecture really fits in together with Abacus tool.
Thank you, Pritham. I think that you covered that very well. So let's look more from a Agile architecture point of view. So Pritham's integrated planning transitions immediately to what Agile architecture and how we are utilized Abacus for that. Troy, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thanks, Harry. So I already discussed how we're going through a transformation to adapt end-to-end Agile. Business analysts aren't no longer creating comprehensive requirements up front, and architects aren't creating comprehensive architectural definitions of solutions up front. Instead, both the business architecture and solution architectures are evolving over time. The architects create an initial architecture with just enough detail for the development teams to get started without getting off track, and to ensure that difficult to change items are addressed up front. So basically minimum viable architecture. Then the architect participates in the line and elaborates with the architecture based on what's required to address any of the stakeholder or project needs. So to achieve this, we've really had to change the way that we use Abacus to increase the velocity of being able to create and refine architectures, since they're not sitting down and creating this whole architectural definition up front, and we need to be able to do things quickly and model and continue to model them as we go. So Pritham explained some of the ways we've evolved our approach to integration planning leveraging Abacus. Most of this integrated planning and business architecture elaboration is done by business analysts. Abacus Enterprise dashboards have proven very effective at enabling our business analysts to quickly add and update this information in Abacus. Architects still do most of their modeling in Studio. For them, we've developed modeling accelerators in Studio to automate many of their critical architectural modeling tasks to make it much more efficient for them to do a lot of the modeling. Habib's going to talk about more about this in a few minutes. Although Studio is a primary modeling tool used by architects, we're also creating dashboards for some architecture activities. For example, we're using dashboards to enable architects to quickly document architectural decisions without needing to log into Studio. Another change from our Agile journey is we're making incremental changes to production much more frequently rather than having big bang implementations. So to facilitate this, we've also introduced this change to simplify migrating architecture from our transition architecture in Abacus to the baseline architecture, which represents the production state, so they can move things more quickly without having to create this big package to have to move everything together. So let me go ahead and show you a couple examples of the enterprise dashboards we've created. So as Pritham mentioned, in order to achieve the end-to-end Agile, it was critical that we get business analysts on board. Prior to enterprise, we only had a couple of business analysts who used Abacus. As I mentioned, we developed these dashboards for enabling business analysts to complete the elaboration, planning, and business modeling tasks. And so to kind of go into this theme of outcomes, right? Outcomes is one of the things we needed to very early bring them on board to be able to modeling outcomes for to help with our end-to-end Agile. And so this gives them the ability to quickly add and edit outcomes and update. You can see the table on the bottom, the catalog on the bottom. They can easily create an outcome, map that to the value stream, map that to the objectives. As well, we also create a diagram in there which gives them the context, right? So they can clearly see how within it we have a very complex meta model within Abacus. but this allows them to see kind of the relationships of what they're actually modeling, so they can kind of get a clear picture of how this all relates together. Next slide. So as I mentioned, although architects do most of their modeling in Studio, we created this dashboard for architectural decisions, since an architect will often want to update architectural decisions, or some folks need to provide approval for architecture decisions that may not even ever go into into Abacus Studio. So this gives the ability to quickly be able to create architecture decisions for projects or against applications, and go in and modify it as well. They can also have the ability to filter. This is just a kind of a small picture of the dashboard. But we have many more fields on here within the catalog to allow them to filter to see what are all the impacts for a particular project, what are all the impacts against a particular application. We also have additional catalogs on this too, if they filter on a specific architectural decision, to show what are all the alternatives selected, considered, and what are the various decision criteria used to assess those alternatives. And so since this is in Abacus Enterprise as well, not only giving the architects easy ability to be able to work with and add and approve architectural decisions, it also it enables us to within the dashboard just to have increase the visibility to this. So instead of before we had to export our architectural decisions out so that we could put them in say SharePoint, so we could have increased visibility to it. Being in Abacus Enterprise, the whole enterprise has visibility. Any stakeholder who needs to know and understand about architectural decisions can easily access that information. So in summary, Abacus Enterprise has proven quite useful in our Agile journey, and so these dashboards that I was showing you are very utilitarian. So they're very much for ease of modeling. So I think Jason is going to show you some much prettier dashboards that we have for actually doing architecture analysis and visibility into our enterprise architecture. Thanks, Hari.
Thank you, Troy. I think that is a good coverage of the different kinds of information that we seem to be collecting through the process of Agile architecture. As you can see, we do have information coming from our business teams, from our IT teams, and all that, and it becomes a question of how well do we manage this architecture information. So let's, Jason, do you want to take us through our more colorful dashboards as Troy talked about?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Good morning, everybody. So, I mean, as an enterprise architect in the repository that we keep, we have lots of information across multiple different domains. And the whole point is what story can your enterprise architecture repository tell? We collect information from everywhere, but how do you manage to tell stories with it that the audience is actually looking for or needs and doesn't realize? What are the problems and pain points that your audience wants their answers for? And how do you drive your audience towards the conclusion you want them to reach, which should answer the problem or pain point they brought to your attention? This is big picture, where there's many stories weaved together from data across multiple different domains, from business, from data, from information technology, solution and security, et cetera. And a lot of the time, information is captured and analyzed just within a specific domain, which doesn't go very deep. When you're going digital, it doesn't mean just capturing the information. It also means learning how to relate all these different sets of information, provide contextual value for them. And a lot of times that's even hidden in plain sight. So starting off, it's meaning, what is quality data? We strive for high quality data. It's clear, consistent, governed, and current. What does that mean? Clear means it's categorized and easy to consume. A lot of times we capture a lot of raw information, but there's very little that can be done with it because there's not a lot of understanding of what it means to begin with. So that means it needs to be categorized, easy to consume, transformed if necessary. The data needs to be consistent, which means it's constrained, it's structured, sometimes even predictable. Abacus constraints that exist in types and standards are very, very useful for this. You can also design tools and GUIs like we do here at Nationwide. We have several helper tools that are designed within Abacus that guide the user through predictable behavior aligned with our constraints and our meta model to provide valuable output from them. Governed means, are these data sources from systems of record, from the owners of the data? We don't want to pull from systems that are taking copies of a copy of data and then using that within our repository. And current is the data updated and validated, whether it's automated or if it's manual input by architects on a daily basis or as part of their daily routine. How do we ensure the freshness of the data? And that's where you work with the architects and the business to ensure that the data is good and if you're capturing all the data you need for the answers. So once you have all that, what do you do with it? Well, you build bridges to find those hidden stories. You dig into that data. And what we do at Nationwide, especially since the release of Abacus 7, is to craft scripts and algorithms that can be used to bridge domains based, beyond connections and just inferred relationships. We use algorithms for most of our MVPs, which are minimum viable products, within dashboards and catalogs to go and pull relationships between data that isn't directly connected within our meta model. And instead of forcing our users to go into the tool and to dig around and look between different portions of our different domains in our meta model, what we're trying to do now is use our dashboards, as you can see on the pictures down at the bottom, to tell those stories for them. And then when they see these things, they can then go, hey, it would be really cool if we could see this type of relationship. Give us let us know what information's in there where these two things are connected, or if they're not, is there a way to do it? And it sort of self-propagates, and more dashboards and more stories can be told with it. In the few short months that we've had Abacus 7, we've had a significant amount of growth in requests for dashboards and information, which has put a lot of visibility on the types of things that are going on within Nationwide. And it has become a very powerful ally for solution architects and even higher up. So the next step is, now that you have all this information and you're starting to use algorithms and scripts, use algorithms to go, like I said, beyond the initial connections, and you can use scripts for more complex analysis, especially where it comes to attributes and properties and connections. The next step is to create effective and simple dashboards to tell those stories that are relevant to your audience. So what are some tips for those for simple and effective? Design usefully. Controls should affect an entire dashboard predictably. When you push something on a dashboard, it should hopefully affect the entire screen, not just one little portion of it. Design intuitively. Navigation should be easy and effortless for the user. They should be able to flow through the page, whether it's, for example, starting at the upper left and working, left to right, top to bottom. They should be able to figure out how to get around the screen without having any sort of prompting. Performance is something to keep in mind. Know how much data is being loaded on your dashboards. If you have a catalog that pulls in 50,000 rows, the user's not going to sit there for 5 minutes waiting on it. They want to see what they want to see quickly, just like anybody else would with any other sort of a website. So know how much data is being loaded, minimize those load times and reload impacts by pre-filtering catalogs and saving the catalogs in Studio with pre-filters so that it's already taken out of the equation when it tries to load up in the dashboard. Include the columns you want to sort to filter and sort, and then hide that column. Layout, design with a logical flow, and consider how you lead your user around that dashboard. Just because it's easy for you to figure out and consume doesn't mean it's easy for them. Use a variation of charts and visualizations to try to tell the story. Putting 15 pie charts on the page may look pretty cool and Star Trek-y, but at the same time, it's not going to be easy for anybody to really glance at it and consume. Prioritize simple design, and continue to evolve and improve your dashboards, especially after you receive feedback. We get a lot of feedback on the dashboards where, a business lead or an architect would want to see something new on there, and it gives you an opportunity to go out and search and try to find that and put it in there. And the more value you generate that quickly, the more adoption you're going to have on it. remember the story you're trying to tell. That this is for the users and for the business users especially. They have different sorts of requirements for what they're looking for, and make sure you're able to tell that story for them. So then as far as capturing data through everyday normal work, one of the keys as an enterprise architect is not trying to force additional work on everybody else. It's helping architects and business folks realize that the work they're already doing can be captured and can live within this repository, as opposed to just disparate PowerPoints and slideshows and Word documents kept out on hard drives somewhere. Capture the data through everyday normal work. And as they continue to do that, that keeps it current through that usage. So that's how we manage a lot of our architecture information and how we make it available and valuable to our audience. And I think we're now going to talk about how to use and extend Abacus.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. That's great. We use a lot of information. We present a lot of those information in a very attractive way. And for us to do all this, we cannot do this without extending the capabilities of Abacus. So we invested some effort into extending it, and Habib would like to go through that.
Hello. In Nationwide, we use the scripting capability to basically overcome limitation capturing data in dashboard. Jason mentioned a lot of different, and also Troy mentioned that we use Abacus to capture data. But if there is like multiple hubs, it's very difficult to capture the data using dashboards. And also, we want to automate whatever we can. So if we can figure out something that some architects is modeling, we want to automate that so that it saves times. And we definitely want to accelerate it and guide our modeling tasks. So our scripting has two main goals. One is to make modeling easier for the architects, and second, that's very important to us, the standardize the modeling pattern. So in our enterprise architecture team, we figured that this is the best model certain solutions. So if we use script, we can actually guide them. They can do a little bit of variations, but they can actually get a guided tour on that. And for over the years, we have developed many scripts to aid the architects. But here, because we are time constrained, I'm just going to talk about 3 new modeling scripts that we have developed in Nationwide and give a brief descriptions of what they can do. So the first one in the bottom left is the modeling accelerator. It's basically a general purpose accelerator to make the architects modeling. They allow architects to model very easily. Our repository is very fast. So whenever they want to do model in Abacus, sometimes, some of the windows, it becomes a little bit slow. So in order to make it faster, we, in this accelerator, we load whatever we need, just the bare minimum, whatever we need. So wherever the architect is focusing, it just, based on the navigation path the architects are taking, it loads whatever it needs. And this script actually figures out, it analyzes the constraints of the meta model to figure out what possible child components or connections the user can create. So in any components on the tree view you see there, when the user right clicks on it, they see whatever they can do. And if there is a kind of like a must-have constraint, and they have forgotten to add that connection or something like that, this this accelerator will actually give visual clues so that the architects can handle that connection and create that connection right there, rather than trying to commit and figuring out, oops, I forgot to model this. Let me go back and add the connections. And we also keep our current state and future state separate. And we had a kind of like a rather complex process previously to push our future state modeling to the current state. Using these scripts, the architects can just check marks whatever components and connections they want to push to baseline. And with a single click of a button, it gets pushed to the baseline. And if they have forgotten to check some constraints that actually will cause validation errors, this script will actually figure that one out and push that along with to the baseline also. So the second accelerator we're going to talk about is a API modeling accelerator. This is used for logical modeling of our APIs in Abacus. It has a wizard-like interface with about 10 steps. This is based on the standard approach we have in Nationwide regarding the API design curriculum. So this script actually it starts even though the architects are designing API, these scripts will actually start the business architecture. So the architects can start thinking about what we are trying to do rather than how. So then slowly after the business architecture information has been populated, this script will guide them to the information architecture, basically talking about what informations I'm touching, and then to the finally the application architecture and the data architecture. And once all the wizard steps has been completed, the users get an option to create a diagram so that focuses on the API and shows all the related touch points in that diagram so that they get a clear picture, and they can also export in an Excel file detailing the API. The third script I'm going to talk about is our developing. It was developed to aid the architects to do the technology architecture modeling. This is very useful script, especially it helped us in the cloud migration journey. The skits allows architects to not only identify what technology stacks an application uses, it also tracks like which deployment platform that technology resides. So for example, whether they're using something in a EC2 instance or a on-prem server, those kind of things this can track. And this script actually you can create a current state application stack so that you can define what technology you're currently using, and also you can plan for how we are going to move to, or like what is your future state planning for from the technology perspective. And once you can do actually multiple states, so you can have like let's say you have currently on-prem technologies and you are slowly trying to move to cloud, you can do a multi-stage planning, and as the state gets executed and this moves to the current state, they can easily push their changes to the current state so that your current state of the application's technology is up to date. And it helps usually we're using this script, the architects they actually know what technologies their applications is going to use. They can easily do it within less than 5 minutes and get on with their other stuff they do. So these are the three scripts that we wanted to highlight this today for today's presentation.
Thank you, Habib. That is great. We would not have been able to do what all we did with Abacus without these scripts that were developed to make the task a lot more easier. But as you can see, this involves quite a number of changes that we have pushed through the organization. And one aspect that usually gets neglected is the change management. So we have Sharik, who keeps a tab on how we are pushing these changes through the organization.
Hi, everyone. I will cover the role of change management for enterprise architecture, as Hari mentioned. We use ProSize ATCR model as a basis for managing any Abacus or enterprise architecture related changes. The first stage of the ATCR model is awareness. Awareness is created by socializing potential changes to the stakeholders. For changes which requires awareness on a bigger scale, the chief architect steps forward by creating a video or live broadcast to boost the awareness. The second stage is desire. To create a sense of desire for supporting the change, we depend on the sponsorship of the leaders from different architecture groups. When the sponsorship is earned, those leaders help disseminate the benefits of the changes to their subordinates. The next stage is knowledge. At this stage, we communicate all the details about the future change, including information about what exactly will change, which current processes the change will impact, how the change will take place and when, and how the people who will be impacted can learn more about the change and train themselves. Then comes ability. Depending on the kind of change, at this stage, we focus a lot on providing trainings. We arrange change demonstration for the stakeholders, create training videos, write user manuals, publish white papers or point of view documents, etc., based on the change itself. The final change is reinforcement. We utilize different communication channels like Yammer, SharePoint page, email burst, etc., to reinforce the change. At this stage, we also measure the effectiveness of the changes by creating surveys and focus group discussions, as we believe receiving candid response from the practitioners regarding the change is very important to understand the impact current changes making to the users, as well as any future changes to the same users or stakeholders. With this, I will give the floor back to Hari for a summary on what we have covered.
Thank you, Sharik. That was great. Without the change management, we would not have been where we are today. But overall, I just want to summarize by saying that all this could look like things which are happening on the top, the different mechanisms by which we execute. But underlying all this is a shift in the principles by which we operate. As you can see, I won't walk through bullet by bullet here, but overall, we are shifting towards where architects are a lot more agile, hands on keyboard, and the belief itself is shifting towards saying, I'll make decisions at last point rather than and earlier. So given this, I want to leave 10 minutes for Q&A. We are still on our journey. We are not there completely. So we'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And as a reminder, please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A module. We'll try and get to as many as we can, and we do have quite a few already, which is great. So the first one is hopefully a fairly simple and quick one, and that is, what meta model did you use in Abacus?
We use our own meta model. We created, it's a homegrown meta model.
Excellent. Did you create that completely from scratch, or did you start with any type of framework?
We kind of based it on TOGAF as well as business architecture guilds, fundamentally from a business architecture point of view, but we have modified that significantly.
Great, perfect. Another good question. What challenges have you faced when you're moving from a waterfall to end-to-end agile methodology?
Oh, well, it'll take a whole hour to talk about it. We still haven't made we haven't made the shift. It's mostly it has to do with the mindset change as well as operational processes related change. There's always, it's not easy to get someone to trust that a new process will work even better than an old process, because there's some definitiveness associated with old processes. So it's a major change management issue. So we try to do this by going step by step, proving out on, we get some early adopters and prove it out with them. And then that way gain more confidence.
Excellent, great. So we have someone who's a new user of Abacus, and they ask, am I right in thinking that you have multiple architectures for current state, target state, and each piece of work an architect is working on?
Right, so we maintain two different views. One is the current state as well as the target state. So the target state is always fluid. That's where the architects keep creating different views. And then once the target state becomes the current state, they promote it into the baseline. But even in something like a technology architecture, we even enabled architects to create more than one future state within our future state architectures.
Wonderful, perfect. Now, how do you automate the changes in terms of a new server added, a new network component added? How are you automating those changes?
We have integrated Abacus with our CMDB. So we get a nightly feed from the CMDB updating Abacus's repository. And the same way it's a by-way integration so that we push out our business capabilities, information, etc., into CMDB. So essentially for incident management related things. So we are integrated with the CMDB.
And another question, how did you prioritize the development of the model in Abacus, and how long has it taken to develop?
I think it's about a work of almost 5 years where we are today. But when we originally started, it was very application centric. Of course, we had to get the foundational information. We call this as foundational modeling of applications and their services and interconnections. And then we extended it to connect it back to the business capabilities. Now we are going the one more step of connecting to the value streams and making it a lot more integrated with operations. So the shift has been, we are on a catch-up game until now of architects coming back and putting information into Abacus on what they have done. We are trying to shift it to a do it in Abacus kind of a scenario.
Perfect. So somebody asked, did you have issues with engagement when trying to begin capturing data from your business analysts?
We're starting to get their attention. I don't think from a usability point of view, we are never going to beat PowerPoints and Word documents and all that, which is easier to get to and populate. But as people start seeing the value of what is being done here and the structure it provides, we're seeing some traction from that. But I would not say that we have won over everybody.
Do you have any tips for people who are looking to do the same type of thing?
Set the vision very clearly and make a sell based on the value it will deliver, and do through experiments. Create experiments, prove it out, and then as you get success, fine tune it and broaden it up. Do not take it as a waterfall design, top down and transformation.
Good advice. As far as your implementation of Abacus, did you all implement it using mostly nationwide skills or nationwide, the nationwide team, or mostly Abacus consultants?
We originally, when we started, we had Abacus consultants from Evolution helping us the initial education. But once we got going, I think we had the skills within us.
Yeah, so I think you guys.
Of course, we use Evolution for additional questions and all that we have.
Sure. Someone did ask if you're able to share your modeling and accelerator scripts that you mentioned on slide 16, and if you're willing to do so, I'm sure we can put them, we can put you in touch as well. And there was a follow-up question regarding your mention of integrating with the CMDB, asking if even if you've integrated with the CMDB, how do you ensure the relationship is auto-created between components? Have you guys done a particular script in order to do that?
Yeah, the integration with CMDB is application based. So we get the information back based on the application. So we have unique ID associated in an application. And then we have unique ID based on where those applications are deployed. So CMDB will push back to us. So we are integrated essentially, have anchored around this application's ID, which we carry in Abacus as well as in CMDB.
Excellent. Okay. So someone asked, considering your organization started as a collection of brands, perhaps similar to the result of an organization built on acquisitions working in silos, what were the most important factors for you in deciding how to evolve your architecture from monolithic, tightly coupled to a cloud-based one, instead of just moving to cloud in one go?
So I think there are two parts to that question. One is that how we are evolving from the monolithic to the motivation for that is actually cost is always a major motivation for it. It was one aspect, but as soon as we get in based on expenses, we realize that agility and speed is another motivation we need to do. Our businesses are starting to realize the need for us to be reacting much faster. We used to have something like 18 to 24 months of time before we can push a change back into a business change back into the market. No longer, and we have new competitors who are much faster. So I think the motivation is both from business side as well as from a cost side, which is pushing us in this direction.
Excellent. And so I think we got to most of the questions. Thank you, Hari, so much for answering those. And that brings us to the end of this Digital Summit presentation. And I'd like to give a big, huge thank you to the whole Nationwide team for a really great and informative presentation, and also thank the audience for joining today's session. Just a reminder, the recording and slides will be available to view in a few days, and we'll ensure that those are shared with you. And just another reminder, up next, we have a presentation from two Evolution consultants, Manisha and Nick, and that's titled Connecting People with Live Data, Integrations and Collaborations. And that presentation will start in about half an hour, and hope you're able to join us for that. Thank you again so much to the Nationwide team, and thank you all for joining us, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.